It was an ordinary Saturday morning, the kind that invites you to step outside and embrace the fresh AI. My daughter, a spirited 15-year-old with an insatiable passion for running, decided to take advantage of the mild weather. With her favorite playlist blaring in her ears and a determined look on her face, she set off on what was supposed to be an invigorating jog around our neighborhood. She glided past familiar houses and friendly faces. There was nothing unusual about her routine. Jogging had always been her escape, a way to clear her mind and find solace amidst the chaos of adolescence. Little did she know that a simple act of exercise would soon spiral into something unimaginable. Just a few blocks from home, my daughter felt a sense of freedom as she navigated through our quiet streets. The sun peeked through the trees, casting dappled shadows on the pavement. However, in this seemingly peaceful setting, there lurked an unsettling undercurrent driven by the local Homeowners Association, HOA. Earlier that week, they had expressed concerns about suspicious activity in the area, a vague notion that began to take shape in their minds. Inexplicably, a neighbor made a call to the police, reporting a suspicious person jogging through the community. When officers arrived moments later, they spotted my daughter, an innocent teenager simply enjoying her in their eyes. However, she embodied whatever fear had been conjured up by those HOA whispers that they approached her with uncertainty instead of understanding. Everything changed. What began as a carefree morning jog transformed into an emotional nightmare that would reverberate through our lives for months to come. In that moment of confusion and misjudgment, my daughter's love for running collided with prejudice and fear, setting off a chain of events that would lead us down an unthinkable path towards justice. To understand the events that unfolded that day, it's essential to delve into the dynamics of our local homeowners association, HOA. Formed to maintain property values and foster a sense of community, the HOA was initially viewed as a benign entity. However, in recent years, it had taken on a more authoritative role, often overstepping its boundaries. Regular meetings became breeding grounds for discontent and paranoia, with certain members advocating for heightened vigilance against perceived threats. The HOA had begun to circulate rumors about suspicious activity in the neighborhood, a vague term that seemed to encompass anything from unfamiliar cars parked too long to new faces spotted during evening strolls. These whispers grew louder. They fueled an atmosphere of fear and mistrust among residents. Many longtime neighbors felt suffocated by increasing restrictions and overly watchful eyes. Tensions escalated when several community members expressed their concerns about safety without citing any concrete incidents. Instead of fostering open discussions about community engagement and cooperation, the HOA began issuing warnings and guidelines that seemed more punitive than protective. This shift created a rift that divided neighbors instead of uniting them. In the weeks leading up to my daughter's jog, 2 incidents involving minor disputes had caught the HOA's attention, neither of which warranted any police involvement but served to heighten anxiety among residents. The board's response was heavy-handed. They encouraged reporting any unusual sightings or behavior immediately. This instruction set a dangerous precedent, allowing fear to override common sense. On that fateful Saturday morning, as my daughter ran through our neighborhood, the HOA's amplification of baseless fears came crashing down on her. A single phone call from one of their vigilant supporters transformed her innocent jog into an alarming spectacle. What was once a source of joy became entangled in a web of community paranoia, setting the stage for our fight against this misguided authority. My daughter jogged peacefully through the neighborhood. An unsettling chain of events unfolded behind the scenes. It started with a concerned neighbor who spotted her running alone and instantly fell victim to the HOA's climate of suspicion. The fear that had been instilled in our community meant that any unfamiliar sight was quickly labeled as potential wrongdoing. This particular neighbor, unable to see an innocent teenager merely enjoying her routine, reached for their phone and made a 911 call claiming that a suspicious person was lurking in the area. Within moments, police officers were dispatched to respond to the alarm. By this time, my daughter had crossed the street and began her second lap around the nearby park. As she jogged, oblivious to the chaos brewing behind her, 2 patrol cars pulled into the neighborhood with their lights flashing, creating an atmosphere of tension that felt foreign and intimidating. The officers approached her with caution, their expressions serious as they attempted to ascertain what was happening. Witnesses watched from their porches and sidewalks, bewildered by the sudden escalation. One bystander later recalled how she could see my daughter's surprise morph into confusion as she was confronted by officers who seemed unsure of what they were doing. "Is everything all right?" my daughter asked, caught off guard at the scene unfolding around her, instead of offering reassurance. One officer began questioning her about why she was in the area while another radioed for backup. The situation quickly devolved from curious inquiry to an oppressive confrontation, all rooted in unsubstantiated fears. As my daughter stood there, unsure and anxious, she felt a heavy weight of misjudgment. What was once an enjoyable morning transformed into a moment that would forever be etched in memory. The unfolding events that day were fueled not by crime or misconduct, but by an atmosphere of unnecessary alarm, one that would set in motion a fight for justice against those who misused their authority out of fear rather than understanding. The moment my daughter was confronted by the police marked the beginning of a profoundly troubling experience that would haunt her for months. As officers approached her, they were immediately armed with a preconceived notion, one that painted her as a potential threat instead of an innocent teen. They surrounded her, not with concern for her safety, but with an air of suspicion that made it evident they had been alerted to some imagined danger. The officers began interrogating her aggressively, asking questions about where she lived and why she was running in the area. My daughter, bewildered and frightened, attempted to explain herself, saying she was simply on a routine jog. However, the officers seemed uninterested in her words. They focused instead on their duty to investigate a suspicious person, which only served to escalate the situation further. Despite the lack of any evidence against her, no criminal behavior, no complaints from residents about her presence, the officers were quick to accept the narrative spun by an anxious neighbor. The HOA's influence loomed large over their actions. It was clear they were operating under pressure to quickly address a supposed threat rather than exercising good judgment based on facts. What made this scenario even more egregious was that there were no other witnesses asserting that she had acted inappropriately or posed any danger. Her running attire, a bright top and comfortable shoes, was completely appropriate for the activity she was engaged in, yet it became overlooked amidst the officers' misguided assumptions. Ultimately, my daughter was wrongfully arrested not because she had committed any crime, but because fear overshadowed rationality. This incident underscored how easily misidentification can occur when paranoia prevails, reminding us of the consequences that stem from allowing prejudice to dictate actions and decisions within our community. What should have been an ordinary day transformed into a painful encounter with authority that highlighted the critical need for accountability and justice against such misunderstandings. The aftermath of my daughter's wrongful arrest was a tumultuous emotional journey that left deep scars on her mental well-being. Once vibrant and confident, she now faced an overwhelming flood of fear and anxiety. The experience had shattered her sense of safety, not just in our neighborhood, but in the very act of running that she once cherished. Each time she laced up her shoes, she felt a knot tightening in her stomach, recalling the bright blue lights flashing behind her and the unsettling tension of being surrounded by officers who viewed her as a suspect rather than a harmless jogger. Humiliation weighed heavily on her as well. The realization that neighbors had witnessed the incident, and that some might still regard her with suspicion, made it difficult for her to face anyone without feeling exposed. She found herself second-guessing interactions, worrying that others might judge her based on a single moment when she was misidentified. School days became burdensome. What used to be a place filled with laughter and friendships turned into a realm where she felt like an outsider, longing for the carefree spirit she had lost. Anger simmered beneath the surface, too. A righteous fury directed at those who had turned a simple jog into an ordeal. It was directed not only at the neighbor who made the call but also at the officers who failed to see reason in their response. This anger manifested in various ways. Sometimes, it would flare up during discussions about justice or community safety, while other times it would lead to silent tears late at night when she thought no one was watching. In seeking solace, my daughter began writing her thoughts down, an emotional outlet that helped her confront what had happened. Slowly, she channeled her pain into advocacy, realizing that sharing her story could empower others facing similar injustices. While healing takes time, this journey has opened new paths for resilience and purpose amid the emotional turmoil caused by that fateful day. Upon hearing the news of my daughter's arrest, a wave of disbelief and fury washed over me. I rushed to the scene, driven by an overwhelming urge to protect my child amid the chaos. As I approached, I could see her standing with officers, her face pale and expression bewildered. It was evident that she felt trapped in a situation beyond her control. And my heart broke for her. In that moment, instinct kicked in, the instinct of a parent wanting to shield their child from harm. I moved closer, demanding clarity on what was happening. When an officer recounted the reason for the arrest, citing the neighbor's misleading report, my adrenaline surged. I felt an intense anger toward our community's climate of paranoia. How could someone misconstrue an innocent act of jogging as a perceived threat? My immediate reaction involved ensuring my daughter received emotional support. I wrapped my arms around her in that moment, making it clear she was not alone and that I would fight to help her navigate this ordeal. After we got home, we sat together and talked about everything that had transpired. Her feelings of fear and humiliation poured out as tears streamed down her face. As we processed this traumatic experience, I reassured her that it wasn't her fault and vowed to seek accountability. Recognizing the gravity of the situation, I began gathering information swiftly. I reached out to witnesses who had seen what really happened during her jog, as they were crucial to supporting our case. I documented each detail from every conversation so that no testimony would be overlooked. Engaging with legal experts became essential. They guided me in understanding our rights and how best to proceed. Throughout this process, I made it a priority to keep communication open with my daughter, a vital factor in helping restore her sense of safety after that distressing day. My determination transformed into a relentless pursuit of justice, not only for my daughter, but also against the systemic issues that led to such a grave misunderstanding within our community. Together, we turned our trauma into action, vowing that no one else should endure such unwarranted treatment again. As we prepared to pursue legal action against the Homeowners Association, HOA, it became crucial to establish a strong legal foundation for our case. Central to our claims were potential civil rights violations, particularly those outlined in the Fourth Amendment, which protects individuals from unreasonable searches and seizures. My daughter's wrongful arrest epitomized a breach of this right. She was detained without any justifiable cause, as her only crime was jogging through her own neighborhood. Additionally, we explored the possibility of a violation of her 14th Amendment rights, which guarantees equal protection under the law. The HOA fostered an environment of suspicion that led to her being treated differently based solely on her appearance and activity. This discriminatory response underscored a broader issue within the community, one where fear and prejudice overshadowed reason and fairness. The concept of negligence also loomed over the HOA's actions. By encouraging residents to report suspicious behavior without any defined criteria or proper context, they effectively created an atmosphere ripe for misidentification and wrongful accusations. Their lack of due diligence in addressing the concerns raised by residents directly contributed to my daughter's arrest, making them liable for the emotional distress and harm that ensued. To strengthen our case, we began gathering evidence that would illustrate the HOA's role in perpetuating this climate of fear. Testimonies from witnesses who saw the incident unfold would be essential, as would any documented complaints made to the HOA regarding their practices of vigilantism. We sought expert opinions on community policing and civil rights violations to bolster our arguments further. This journey into the legal framework surrounding our case was not just about seeking justice for my daughter. It was about holding the HOA accountable for fostering an environment where irrational fears could lead to real harm. We aimed to ensure that no other family would have to endure such an ordeal, advocating for systemic change within our community to protect everyone's rights. As we delved deeper into building our case against the Homeowners Association, HOA, the compilation of evidence became paramount. Several crucial pieces came to light that could substantiate my daughter's claims of wrongful arrest and illustrate the HOA's pervasive influence over our community's response to perceived threats. First and foremost, we sought out witness statements from neighbors who had seen the incident unfold. Many residents were understandably taken aback by the police's heavy-handed approach to what was clearly an innocent act. Their accounts painted a stark contrast to the narrative spun by the HOA and the concerned neighbor who had made the 911 call. Each testimony emphasized that my daughter was merely jogging and posed no threat whatsoever, a detail that would be vital in establishing her innocence. Additionally, we managed to secure video footage from a nearby home security camera that captured the moment police approached my daughter. The footage provided undeniable evidence that she was calm and compliant during the encounter, undermining any claims that she was acting suspiciously. This visual documentation not only supported her version of events but also highlighted how quickly fear can escalate to unwarranted aggression. In parallel with gathering eyewitness accounts and video evidence, we meticulously reviewed HOA policies and communications that encouraged residents to report suspicious behavior. This included newsletters and meeting minutes filled with vague warnings about safety concerns, which contributed to a culture of mistrust among neighbors. Such documentation was critical in demonstrating how the HOA's directives directly influenced the community's reaction to my daughter's presence. Moreover, I consulted with legal experts who guided us in identifying additional forms of evidence, including statistical data on wrongful arrests driven by racial or socioeconomic biases, further illustrating broader systemic issues at play. With this collection of evidence, we felt increasingly confident in our ability to challenge not just the actions taken against my daughter, but also the underlying practices fostering discrimination within our community. A decisive step towards seeking justice and ensuring accountability for those who instigated such fear-driven actions. The decision to file a lawsuit against the Homeowners Association, HOA, marked a pivotal moment in our pursuit of justice. After months of gathering evidence, processing the trauma, and consulting with legal experts, I felt compelled to take action. The wrongful arrest of my daughter was not just a personal grievance. It symbolized a larger issue within our community regarding fear-driven policing and the accountability of unchecked authority. We initiated the lawsuit by filing a formal complaint in federal court, clearly outlining the civil rights violations we believed had occurred. The document detailed how my daughter's Fourth Amendment rights were infringed upon through her wrongful detention and how her 14th Amendment rights were violated as she faced discrimination based solely on her appearance while engaging in an innocent activity. This legal language was carefully constructed to emphasize the damaging consequences of the HOA's narrative and practices, emphasizing that their climate of suspicion had precipitated my daughter's traumatic experience. My motivation throughout this process was twofold. First, to ensure accountability for those whose actions led to this emotional turmoil, and second, to advocate for necessary changes within the HOA so that other families would not suffer similar fates. I envisioned a community where vigilance did not equate to paranoia, a place where neighbors could coexist without unjust suspicions creating divides. The emotional weight of filing the suit settled heavily on my shoulders, knowing that this was not merely about a legal battle but also about standing up for what was right. Each step in the process reinforced my resolve. It became evident that this fight was bigger than just us. It touched on issues of bias and safety affecting many vulnerable members of society. As we awaited court proceedings, my daughter began to see this fight as an important step toward reclaiming her narrative and restoring her dignity. Together, we navigated through the complexities of litigation with the hope that our actions would bring forth not only justice but also broader awareness and reforms regarding community safety protocols and mutual respect among neighbors. As news of my daughter's wrongful arrest and our subsequent lawsuit against the Homeowners Association, HOA, spread through the neighborhood, the community's response was a mixture of surprise, support, and, unfortunately, some division. Initially, many neighbors were shocked to learn that such an incident could happen in what they believed was a safe and friendly environment. Conversations erupted on front porches and in group chats as people grappled with the implications of an innocent teenager being reported as suspicious while simply jogging. Support from several community members began to swell as they recognized the injustice my daughter faced. Friends from school rallied around her, offering encouragement and understanding as she navigated her emotional recovery. Many expressed disbelief that anyone could view her as a threat and voiced their concern about the HOA's role in creating a culture of fear that could lead to such drastic misunderstandings. This outpouring of support was heartening. It reminded us that we were not alone in our fight for justice. However, there were also factions within the community who defended the HOA's actions, arguing that vigilance was necessary for safety. Some residents felt uncomfortable with our lawsuit, fearing it might disrupt the delicate balance of community living. These differing viewpoints sometimes led to tense conversations at neighborhood gatherings, illustrating how deeply ingrained fear and mistrust have become. As we navigated this complex social landscape, it became clear that our legal battle was not just a personal quest, but a catalyst for broader discussions about community safety, trust among neighbors, and accountability for those in positions of authority. The more we spoke out, the more awareness grew surrounding issues of racial bias and wrongful detentions. In many ways, this ordeal turned into a teaching moment for the community. While the path ahead remained uncertain, there was a newfound determination among those who stood with us to foster an environment where understanding supplanted suspicion, a shared goal uniting neighbors across divides. Our fight became emblematic of a larger movement advocating for change and compassion within our community, reminding everyone that behind every allegation lies a human story deserving of empathy and respect. As the date for our federal court case approached, the preparations became increasingly intensive. My legal team and I met regularly to strategize, ensuring every detail of our argument was meticulously crafted. The stakes were high, and it was essential to present a compelling narrative that would resonate not only with the judge but also with the community and anyone following the case. We began by refining our case's core message, one that articulated how my daughter's wrongful arrest was emblematic of broader systemic issues related to bias and authority within our community. We wanted to frame her experience not just as an isolated incident, but as part of a disturbing trend fueled by fear and misunderstanding. This perspective would help illustrate why it was critical to hold the HOA accountable for their role in fostering such an environment. To strengthen our position, we gathered all relevant evidence, including witness statements, expert opinions on civil rights violations, and video footage that showcased my daughter's composure during her interaction with the police. Each piece of evidence served to underscore her innocence and the unjust circumstances of her arrest. In preparation for court, I also focused on honing my own narrative. I needed to be prepared to testify about what my daughter experienced that day and how it affected our family. It was vital that the emotional weight of her story came through, revealing the profound impact this ordeal had on her mental health and sense of safety. Practicing this testimony in front of trusted friends helped me refine my delivery, ensuring that every word carried the gravity it deserved. Simultaneously, my attorneys worked on anticipating the defense's arguments. Understanding what tactics the HOA might employ allowed us to create counterarguments, strengthening our overall case. We also prepared for possible mediation discussions, hoping to reach an agreement outside of court that might lead to meaningful change within the HOA. With each passing day, we grew more united in our quest for justice, determined to fight not only for my daughter but for future generations who deserve safety and respect in their own neighborhoods. The journey ahead was daunting, but with a solid foundation of preparation behind us, we felt empowered to take this challenge head-on. The day of the trial arrived, and the atmosphere in the courtroom was charged with anticipation. As we entered, I felt a mix of nervousness and determination coursing through me. The proceedings began with opening statements from both sides, setting the stage for what would be a battle of narratives. My attorney emphasized the emotional toll on my daughter and framed her wrongful arrest as a reflection of deeper issues within our community, a plea for accountability that resonated strongly. Witness testimonies followed, beginning with friends and neighbors who had witnessed the incident. Point 1. Neighbor recounted how shocked she was to see police officers confronting my daughter, describing her demeanor as calm and composed. Her words painted a stark contrast to the narrative pushed by the HOA and the concerned neighbor who had initiated the 911 call. Each witness underscored how my daughter, an innocent jogger, became unjustly targeted due to fear rather than any actual wrongdoing. Video footage from a nearby security camera played a pivotal role during the trial. As jurors watched my daughter interact with law enforcement, it became evident that she posed no threat. Instead, she was simply going about her routine. The footage corroborated our claims, further dismantling any arguments that painted her as suspicious or dangerous. On the other side, the HOA's legal team attempted to portray their actions as necessary for community safety. They argued that vigilance was crucial in today's world, but struggled to justify how their policies had led to such an extreme response against an innocent teenager. Their emotional appeals fell flat against the visual evidence and heartfelt testimonies we presented. As we approached closing arguments, I felt a renewed sense of hope. My attorney's final remarks stressed not just the need for justice in this case, but also the importance of fostering a community grounded in understanding rather than fear. It was clear that this trial was not solely about my daughter. It represented a collective yearning for change within our neighborhood. As we left the courtroom that day, I knew we had done everything in our power to advocate for my daughter and challenge a culture of prejudice that needed to be dismantled. The verdict awaited us, but more importantly, we had sparked a profound conversation about safety, justice, and community responsibility. one that would echo long after this trial concluded. Reflecting on the potential outcome of our case, winning would mean far more than just a legal victory for my daughter and me. It would symbolize a crucial step toward justice and accountability within our community. For my daughter, a favorable verdict would not only validate her experience, but also serve as a powerful affirmation of her strength in overcoming the trauma of her wrongful arrest. That it would empower her to continue advocating for herself and others facing similar injustices, reinforcing her belief that standing up against wrongdoing can lead to meaningful change. On a broader scale, our success in court could act as a catalyst for reforming policies related to community policing and the responsibilities of homeowners associations. It would send a clear message that unwarranted fear should not dictate actions taken against innocent individuals. By holding the HOA accountable, we could inspire other communities to examine their own practices and encourage them to foster a culture of understanding instead of suspicion. Moreover, the implications of winning this case extend beyond our immediate situation. It represents an opportunity for dialogue about bias and the systemic issues that often go unnoticed in everyday life. If this trial highlights the dangers of prejudice and promotes discussions about community safety protocols, it could ultimately contribute to building stronger, more inclusive neighborhoods where everyone feels safe and respected. As we awaited the verdict, I realized that regardless of the outcome, we had already sparked important conversations among residents about accountability and compassion. Our journey highlighted the need for collective awareness regarding how fear can distort perceptions and lead to harmful consequences. Winning this case could solidify our fight for justice while inspiring others to take action against injustice, making it clear that every individual's story matters in shaping a fairer society. In essence, this trial was not just about my daughter's wrongful arrest. It was about challenging norms and advocating for a future where empathy triumphs over fear. We hope to pave the way for positive change that would resonate within our community long after the final ruling was made. This experience has ignited a passion in both my daughter and me to raise awareness about similar issues affecting other neighborhoods. We recognize that her story was not an isolated incident, but part of a broader pattern where fear-driven policing and misidentification can have serious consequences for innocent individuals, particularly marginalized communities. With this realization, we felt compelled to become advocates for change. Using our voice to challenge the status quo, we began organizing community forums aimed at educating residents about the dangers of bias and the importance of understanding one another. These discussions provided a platform for sharing experiences and fostering dialogue around accountability in local policing practices. We invited guest speakers, activists, legal experts, and mental health professionals to shed light on the systemic issues at play and offer practical solutions for creating safer, more inclusive environments. In addition to community outreach, we collaborated with organizations focused on civil rights advocacy to amplify our message. While aligning with groups that share our vision for justice, we sought to gain traction for initiatives aimed at reforming HOA policies and policing practices. Our goal was not only to advocate for my daughter's case, but also to inspire other families who may find themselves facing similar challenges. Social media became another powerful tool in our advocacy efforts. We shared updates about our journey, educational resources, and calls to action, encouraging others to engage in conversations about safety, trust, and community dynamics. The response has been overwhelmingly positive. Many have reached out with their own stories of injustice or expressed gratitude for shedding light on these critical issues. Ultimately, our ongoing advocacy is fueled by a desire to ensure that no one else must endure the trauma my daughter faced. We firmly believe that by raising awareness and advocating for change, we can contribute to building communities where empathy replaces suspicion, a legacy that honors her struggle while empowering others along the way. It's not just about seeking justice. It's about transforming the very fabric of our neighborhoods into places where everyone feels safe and valued. As we conclude this chapter of our journey, I find it essential to reflect on the profound impact this experience has had on both my daughter and me. The wrongful arrest she endured not only tested her resilience, but also ignited a passion within us to stand against injustice. Our fight was never solely about seeking retribution, but about fostering a sense of safety and respect within our community. Through this ordeal, We gained a deeper understanding of the systemic issues that can plague neighborhoods when fear overrides reason. We have committed ourselves to ensuring that no one else has to face the trauma my daughter experienced. By raising awareness and advocating for change, we aim to dismantle the barriers created by prejudice and suspicion. Our ongoing efforts to educate others about the dangers of misidentification and fear-driven policing have already begun to yield encouraging results. Community discussions have opened minds and hearts, revealing a shared desire for understanding and collaboration. We have witnessed firsthand how empowering individuals with knowledge can lead to a more compassionate environment where everyone feels safe. Moreover, our advocacy extends beyond our immediate community. We aspire to inspire similar movements in other neighborhoods grappling with issues of discrimination and misunderstandings. Together with civil rights organizations, we work toward reforming policies that encourage vigilance to ensure they do not devolve into oppression. Ultimately, this journey is about more than just accountability and justice for my daughter. It's about changing the narrative that allows fear to dictate actions and perceptions. We envision a future where empathy prevails over suspicion, a future where diversity is celebrated and every individual is treated with dignity and respect. As we continue our advocacy, I remain hopeful that our efforts will contribute to a transformative ripple effect across communities, creating an atmosphere of trust and unity. The lessons learned through adversity will guide us as we strive to build a world where every person can feel empowered, safe, and valued, ensuring that such injustices cease to exist for generations to come.